SJREIA does not exist to render and does not give legal, tax, economic, investment, or financial advice. SJREIA disclaims all liability for the actions or inactions taken or not as a result of communications from or to its members, officers, directors, and employees.
Okay, so SJREIA, thank you very much for having us in this group. It's been a great monthly group that we've had speakers on. We think we bring a lot of value to the group. For anybody that's on this chat watching, I suggest that you go to the main meeting for SJREIA. It's definitely the most dominant investor group in South Jersey. So we appreciate what they do, as they do a fantastic job at it. Today's guest, I thought it would be good to have on is an attorney in the real estate space, because love attorneys or hate attorneys, you're going to run into attorneys. So you might as well have good ones, and you might as well deal with good ones. So I have Ashley Molson. So Ashley is the owner of Molson Law Firm, LLC. It's a New Jersey real estate law firm focused on serving investors. So Ashley, we've dealt with Ashley on several occasions. My partner Ryan has, I believe, done business with you.
Yes.
And really just enjoyed the process with you. And I think that that's really important when dealing with an attorney in a transaction. I can't tell you how many times I've dealt with attorneys that they don't make it easier, they make it harder. So you've just done a great job with that. I know we've spoken about that in the past. So can you just give anybody on here some history as to like how you get involved with real estate transactions typically from the attorney's perspective?
Yeah, especially from the investor's perspective, it can always be a little questionable, like when do I loop you in?
Mm,
When should I? So I try when I meet new investors who are new to me to let you know that you can pretty much loop me in as soon as you know a deal is like hot for you. You may not have a signed contract yet, but you know that you're going to have ink on paper at some point. And a lot of times I'm dealing with investors. Most of my clients do off-market properties, not on market. But when it's on market, I guess it's a little bit easier. When it's off, it's a little harder to know, like when exactly can I loop you in when it's early. So I say as soon as you know it's hot and as soon as you know you have a deal, let me know. And I always try to encourage people to let me know what their goals are going to be for the file so that we could start doing some upfront research, pulling Oprah's, ordering title, whatever we can do to kind of get the ball moving so that your transaction can be easier. Because the one thing that derails deals the most is kind of like surprise, title issues, which can come up a lot with real estate deals. So I just say, to make it simple, as soon as you have something that's hot, loop me
okay,
in. Yeah, and
that's
we go from
fair.
there.
And what do you guys do? So most transactions in South Jersey do not require an attorney. North Jersey is notorious for always just having an attorney.
Yep.
But where do you tend to get involved? Do you normally get involved in like a single family transaction or more complex deals, or both, or what do you
Both.
exactly? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I'd say my South Jersey deals end up always being the more complicated ones because kind of, I guess, like you said, on average, attorneys aren't really involved in the process. But I'd say that doesn't stand true for Northern New Jersey clients that are starting to do some work down in South Jersey, so they'll bring us in.
Mm.
But even a single family, like if you're doing a wholesale deal, things can get really slippery really fast. So it could be just a single family home that you're assigning, but you just never know what's going to come up. Like if your end buyer is going to try to assign it again, so having someone who's there to help you. Yeah, so I basically do whether it's a simple single family or if it's going to be a complex transaction, either one, we're here to support. And we don't overcook it, if it's something that's like pretty straightforward, you're managing the relationship with the seller side. We kind of do what's needed based on a deal by deal basis.
Now, do you tend to have like newer investors that approach you, or I would think that the way it would go is either a new investor that doesn't really know much about real estate, wants somebody to kind of walk them through it,
Mhm.
in terms of like the legalities of it. Also, though, when you get into certain situations where you have pretty hairy situations where you're like, all right, we got to bring an attorney in. So is it like everything in between, or is it briefly those two scenarios where you tend to be involved?
Yeah, everything in between.
Okay.
So I'd say that Some newer investors, I on average will say like I've tried doing a few deals without an attorney. I realize I need one. So they kind of learn from experience that once a deal does go wrong, they are like, oh
Hmm.
gosh, I definitely need to have someone who's just kind of like dotting I's and crossing T's so that this doesn't happen again. Some investors are new, but they know that they just want to have everything done right. So I'd say it's kind of like based on personality. But we also have very experienced investors who are seasoned, who have been doing things since like 2008, who work with us. There's, I would say, definitely a difference between like a newer investor and a seasoned investor in terms of their ability to kind of like take care of certain things or be prepared for certain problems. Just the more deals you do, the more you can kind of be prepared for. So either way, we are hand holding the newer investors as if they're going to be seasoned. So we're trying to give them a sense of like, we're going to be a team and we want to make sure that, yeah, this is like one deal that we're doing right now, but here's if XYZ, is happening, here's how you can make sure that we work around this in the future. And this is something you can do on your own before it comes to us having to help you, that kind of thing. So it's like a mixture of the transactional aspect of getting to closing, but also education at the same time.
Sure. Now we have, I think about our transactions. We have specific attorneys for specific reasons, whether it's like a transactional or, like a contract attorney or something. So,
Mhm.
and we know exactly when to loop them in if something's getting a little bit sideways. So for your seasoned investors, what is it like a typical situation where they bring you in when they go, okay, it's time?
Yeah, they bring us in just like a non-seasoned investor would if they were using us. So that doesn't really have much of a difference. We don't get looped in by our seasoned investors like when they have a problem. It's just all of their deals, they loop us in. And I would say they actually loop us in earlier because they kind of know, okay, we want to make sure like the price that we're offering on this property can be given to the seller at closing, and they're going to have all their liens paid off. And if they're worried about liens and judgments, they'll have us order title early so we can figure out what needs payoffs, for example. They may loop us in to see if we can do some early diligence on some things. Whereas I'd say a newer investor may like loop us in too late. So I'd say
Hmm.
the seasoned ones actually like loop us in earlier and kind of give us a heads up of like what their plan is, what they need assistance on behind the scenes, and then they'll send us a contract right away. And also, the seasoned investors, if they're working with off-market properties, they do typically have less changes that are needed to the contract because they'll be managing the relationship with the seller and what they put in their contracts without our involvement doesn't really need to change. So unless the seller has an attorney and the seller's attorney wants to make changes, pretty much what they have inked doesn't really change. So we're not really looped in for like the traditional attorney review that would be on your average residential consumer purchase and sale. But also our seasoned investors, their contracts are like we have templates that we work with each investor depending on the type of strategy that they do to essentially give them a template that has the least likelihood of needing to change. And we educate them on where they would need to customize it. So, because I guess to back that up, like my goal is that when I get involved, I'm not going to derail what you've set up expectations wise with your seller. So the more seasoned investors are taking care of those conversations with the seller
Hmm.
in a way where when they involve me, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to say, "Hey, you put in here that um, you know, the you're getting the CO and now you're telling me that the you want the seller to, that
Trying to
kind of
fix
thing."
some.
Uh, Somebody needs to mute themselves. Casey, can you mute yourself? Sorry about that, Ashley.
Okay.
Okay, so that makes sense. Now, do you guys do actual you guys will pull title and everything? Your firm will do title work?
Yeah, so we pull it, we'll order it, and
And then
then
do
we'll
you insure it too? Do you guys have like a
no.
No. Okay, okay. So you'll run title, see what's going to come up, and then okay. So I wasn't sure if you guys also had a title. Okay, so that
Yeah.
makes sense. Now when you guys are in a transaction, are you typically on retainer? Or are you paid a la carte? Like, how does it usually go? Are you paid on the HUD, or how do you guys work like that?
Yeah, so it's kind of traditional that what you would expect with transactional, we will get paid at closing. So if we're doing upfront diligence, we may take like a small upfront fee just to take care of that time that we've done the upfront like diligence you and I've talked about in the past, like the pre-acquisition diligence.
Yeah.
So we'll have a separate upfront payment for that, and then we'll get paid on the transaction at closing. So for our clients who do assignment transactions and are typically the wholesalers, they'll typically have our office receive the assignment fee for the closing, just hold back our fee from it, and then wire them their assignment fee. If it's, a flip that you're doing and you're the direct buyer, then it would just be, your usual, like we get paid at closing. So there's nothing too non-traditional about how we get paid in that respect.
Now, how do you guys, I'm trying to think how to not delicately put this. You get a lot of people in the wholesale space that jump in that aren't really know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And not that there's nothing wrong with wholesaling. In fact, I started in wholesaling. You can really learn a lot wholesaling in this business. So I'm not knocking on wholesalers. I think they're absolutely crucial to this business.
Yeah.
But it is for as far as a barrier to entry goes, that's usually where the easiest place to start is for a lot of people. Um, how do you weed out people kind of that may not pay you or waste your time or never close a transaction? Because I mean, I'm sure that comes to you, right? Like it happens. So how
Yeah.
do you dance with that line?
Yeah, so I make sure I have a consultation with new people who are new to me. Most often newer investors will either reach out when they have a deal, and I can tell by the way they're explaining their deal that they don't know what they're doing. And if it feels like it's not just, hey, I'm new and like I really need help, but
Mhm.
more so I'm, I'm new, but I think I know everything
When
kind
people
of
start
attitude.
the posturing.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
sure.
It's definitely, not bulletproof strategy to try to read people, but I am trying to get the sense of, is this person, new? And you got to do your first deal. Like if you haven't done a deal yet or you've only done a few, and that's not to say that you don't deserve having like good counsel. But I just need to make sure like the person can be handheld and is willing to listen
Hmm.
and receive the guidance that I'm looking to give them. And also, it has to be timely enough for me to do something about it. So if someone's like knee deep in some kind of daisy chain, like I'm not going to touch it, for
Sure.
example. And so it really kind of depends on a multitude of factors, but I have questions. I ask a lot of questions to
Mm.
see and feel out like, is this something that I'm able to take on? And a lot of times if I'm huge on diligence. I've probably mentioned it how many times um, you know, in this meeting already. Diligence is so important. So if like you're not looking to do any diligence, I usually know you're not the right client for me,
Hmm.
because I feel like people who are in the game long enough know that their deal stands on like solid diligence, and especially for wholesaling. You mentioned it's like kind of the barrier to entry, the least, barriers, mostly because people tell you you can do it without any money. So people will
Mm.
like jump in to do it that way, like the gurus will
Sure.
say, step in this way. But it's actually like the most pressured position to be in when you're a wholesaler, because you have to manage a seller and you have to manage an end buyer who's going to be the ultimate like person who takes that project and does something with it. And so you actually have to know more than if you were going to just flip it, because you have to know how to like get the deal together, package it, and also market it and sell it to somebody else. And the best way to do that is to like know your numbers, know the project, and know it as if you were going to buy it and be the end buyer. And if you can't do that, you're going to struggle like really hard.
Yeah, I
So
always say wholesaling is the easiest way to get in and the hardest thing to perfect. And it's
yeah.
because you have to know it all. And if you want to close deals and make money, like you said, the diligence is huge because every single wholesale deal you do is going to come up with something. There is no such thing
Hmm.
as a clean wholesale deal. Something is popping up.
Yes.
And if you think otherwise, like you're like, oh, I'm going to make this much money. It's like, no, there's going to be water, taxes, whatever.
Right.
So the art though of closing the deal is truly something that is a skill set that you've obviously like you've learned how to work your way through that and understand that, and you can kind of sense when something has the potential to close. Like a daisy chain, for those that are listening to this, means when you have like somebody that signs the deal, and then they're going to tell you they're going to double close it with somebody else and then assigns it again, right? So you're like, there's 8 parties involved, nobody who even has the first contract, and you're just like, I can't do this, right? And so so obviously you've developed a sense of that, and I get it. And that's definitely, when I, for what we do as well for lending, I get a lot of people that you have to do the same kind of upfront kind of due diligence of like, how much posturing. Now, what I find is like the people that sell me the least, but have deals like either hard contract deals or can give you short, concise answers to your questions, tend to be, even when they're new, even when they're brand new, it means they did their upfront work themselves and they know
Hmm.
they've got something. It doesn't matter that they're new. It just means that they know they're going to execute on this. It's usually the longer the story that I get leading into like do we have a deal in front of us? Are we closing or not kind of thing? That's when
Yep.
I tend to find it might not be going anywhere. Um, but you become good at knowing that on your end. And then it sounds like you know how to get it through. So you're a facilitator. You become a facilitator with as counsel, which is the best thing
Hmm.
you can have in real estate. I can't like we have the 2 parts. Like sometimes we love in our end when we go, oh, sometimes it's actually the borrower that we deal with that might have just kind of gone astray, and we're like, we can't wait till the
Yeah.
grown-ups enter the picture, meaning when one of the attorneys comes over from the other side to speak, because then we can get somewhere. So like
Right.
attorneys can actually, for a good attorney, can further something in the process, whether it's legal, like a foreclosure proceeding or something, or
Hmm.
a wholesale deal. A not great attorney will jam it up. So like it's important to, like, if you're going to use an attorney, make sure you're using a facilitator and not somebody that, I'm sure you've probably run to legal counsel a lot more than I do on the other end. So because they're not going to call you in sometimes unless there is legal counsel. And then you
Right.
probably run into attorneys on the other side that are difficult at times, right? You're like, if you weren't here, this deal would close on its own, right? Like I'm sure you
Yeah.
run into that, right? Yeah. So
Yep.
what do you do in those situations when you have like, you're like, this legal counsel on the other side is just literally stopping this from closing? Like how do you have a good way about you, so I'm sure you figure out how to do that, but like how would you get through that?
Yeah. So, I mean, typically it's happening initially through email. That's
Mm,
usually where it's starting.
right.
And so I'll kind of try to pick up on anything I can, but most often when someone's being difficult, especially an attorney, they're going to kind of stonewall and not give you any information. So, first order is to try to get them on the phone, to talk to them and kind of like, I don't know, try to become their friend and figure out like, where is this coming from? Is this coming from like the attorney being overworked and like exhausted? And are they just tired, and do they just really like not want to take care of this right now? Sometimes I find it's like they have ungrateful clients who are so difficult to work with, and they actually, it's so funny, like they want to slightly sabotage the deal without saying it.
Okay.
So it's like you have, if they get on the phone, usually it's a great opportunity to be able to pick up on like what's the crux of the real issue here, and then I can figure out, how to navigate it. Like if I go back to my client and I'm like, look, this attorney is, hitting a wall right now. We just need to like lay low and be quiet until tomorrow. Like let's
Mm.
just chill.
Patience
And
and
we'll come
timing
back.
goes a long way. Yeah, patience can go a long way. That is something I lack. And I can tell you how many deals I'm like, if I just walked away for like a day, this would have worked out fine.
And
Like you're
sometimes it
saying,
works
yeah.
itself out,
Yeah, yeah, it
Not
does. It really
always,
does.
but
Yeah, no, that's a
yeah.
good point. Okay, so I guess, yeah, I was going to say, I could see that where you just have clients or attorneys on the other side that are just tired of the transaction. Maybe they're not even being paid, whatever it may be, and they're just like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to pick up the phone. So
Yep.
you're really just trying to disarm them, and that's your goal initially, I guess, just
Yeah,
disarm the other
usually
side,
because
right?
usually it's coming from something that's not it's not usually deal related.
Mm,
Um, and I'd say like when it's attorneys on the other side, 90% of the time it's they're dealing with a lot of stuff and like they can't handle the fact that like a complexity has gotten involved and that they have to actually like figure out how to resolve it and someone's asking them to be the problem solver. Most often, I mean, we all want to be path of least resistance. So if we can kind of like deflect and have someone else solve the problem, that's great. So I try to do that. Like if I can come in and say, tell me what your problem is, let me see how I can fix it, that usually will help. And sometimes it's just enough for me to get a sense of what they want or like what they want for their client. And then I can go back to my client and be like, look, this is what they are really looking for here. Most of the time my clients are like, I don't want to do that. So we still have to negotiate, but at least I now have like position A and position B, and I can try to figure out what to do with, both sides. And I think, like you said, the main thing is thinking of facilitating moving forward through whatever the obstacle is to get to closing. And that's what's like really important. And another thing that can come up too is like you may have professionals involved, like working with you guys. If I can loop you in on a deal, night and day. Like I would love to
mm,
do it. Recently we came to you because we had like a hard money lender that was being so difficult, who was trying to like cause, wrenches and or throw wrenches into the process. And we were able to make it work and like work through it. But sometimes there it's not just opposing counsel, it's like other parties that you would think they want the deal to close, but they're like for
sure.
some reason, putting barriers in place. So we're constantly like looking for, okay, how do we work around this? Do we need to just like get away from these people, and move on to different service providers, or like what do we have to do here?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that about service providers. I would think of that with title companies in general. I'm like, I don't know how many title companies here, if they were professionals, they would just do 100, so much more business. It'd be incredible. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many title companies you bump into where it's like you have to be on their schedule and their time. And when they're having a busy day, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm like, just close the transaction. That's what we've hired you for. But then
Right.
when you have the professional title company that acts like that, I mean, you can't send them enough business. You're just like,
Hmm.
give them everything, give them everything you got, because they're
Yeah.
just like, this is a proper service provider. Same thing with attorneys, same thing with hard money lenders. But like, it's crazy because you're like, do they just not want to do business? I don't know. Like the industry has slowed down. You can't have that much business anymore. Like, I don't, but what you're saying is very true. Like being able to tap into other professional service providers is huge because it makes the
Yeah.
transact it clears it up real fast, real quick,
Hmm.
which is really well said, really well put on what you're trying to do there. I think that's a really good solution. You have to have those alternative solutions. Um, so, do you have anything that you want people in here to know about you guys before as we wrap this up? Because I'd like you to let us know if there's anything specific that you want, and then open up to anybody that might have some questions for you.
Yeah, I'm definitely trying to, I think just like a good segue from what we were just talking about is like customer service centric, is huge. So, a couple things that I am working on, is one, I'm building out like a contract template shop where you can buy contracts for your investment transactions.
That's a good idea.
So I'm going to be beta testing that. So if anyone is interested in like kind of being someone who's part of the beta to give feedback, like if it was useful, where there's still struggle with using them, things like that, that would be phenomenal. And then also, one of the ways that I plan to kind of help facilitate the newer investors in the community is to put together kind of attorney transactional focused courses, that are going to be there to support the education aspect of things to just help you do deals better and not have to try to figure it out on a deal by deal basis, which, you know, can be really costly depending on the situation. So that is also going to be beta at some point. So I'm just looking to innovate as much as possible. So, you know, getting on the phone, having conversations, chatting about like your pain points and kind of like where you've struggled, what's helped you, you know, things like that. So if you ever want to like, I don't know, chat for like 20, 30 minutes, have some coffee over Zoom, that would be great. So that's pretty
Perfect.
much it.
I think so. You're putting that out to everybody in the group, that any investors that are doing that, reach out to Ashley for that. I know I have a lot of people that come to me in general asking for contracts and stuff. That's just not, I mean, it's not my space, but I actually will now, when they ask me, I'll say, talk to Ashley, because she'll have a beta test. That's a really good product that you could be offering too. So,
Yeah.
so questions, wait, let me just double check. You weren't asking, were you saying for me to go to Zoom meeting with you, or Zoom meeting with you, or anybody, anybody in the group? I
No,
just wanted
anybody
to,
who's here. I mean,
okay,
if
I
you
didn't just
want
like
to,
to,
you're welcome.
okay, I was like, okay, all right, just making sure I understood that
Yeah.
statement correctly. Anybody, that was an open-ended invitation to anybody that's in SJREIA that's looking for transactional. Okay.
Yeah, and that's exclusive for you guys. I'm not offering that to everybody.
Perfect. That's a good, that's good. That's great. Thank you for that. So,
Yeah.
Joe Gorberg has a question. What are some of the title issues you guys see come up? Oil tanks, or septic, anything like that? Do you guys run into that? And then how do you deal with it?
Yeah, so in terms of oil tanks, we just say like get an oil tank sweep done as soon as possible. Some investors will actually do it before they ink up a contract with a seller, especially if it's off market and you're like managing that relationship. They may just let you come do a sweep real quick, just so you know what's going on there. And it's kind of up to you how you want to deal with that. Like if you want to test the soil, if you know, are fine based on the price point, like proceeding. We always say if you can get the oil tank out of the ground, that's great, but your sellers are usually distressed. So like they're not going to be able to do that. So good to know that up front before you start talking price. Septics, that can also be a concern. And septics may need, you know, full replacement. Also, septics may involve like survey issues, you know, depending on like wetlands and what's going on depending on the area. So that oil tanks and septics are stuff that you can kind of try to do upfront, you know, diligence. If not, you want to bake in contingencies to cancel if you discover certain things that kind of just put the project out of a price point for you based on where you're coming in with the seller. So that's kind of like a conversation we'd navigate if we were helping you. And then title issues, oh my gosh, yeah, all the time, all day long, title problems, especially on investment deals. So like estates, you know, can be really tricky, especially if you have estates where you've got a lot of heirs, nobody stepped up to be the administrator. So we try to help our clients like just with very basic information so they can help the sellers, or get them to a referral with an attorney who can help the seller with that aspect, because that could completely derail your deal. Like they can't sell until they have administratorship or executorship appointed to them. So yeah, that's kind of why we say order title early too, so you know what you're navigating, and we can figure out how to get the title company what they need for title to be clear, and then you can work with your sellers on, you know, making that happen.
Awesome. All right. Any other questions in the room? We're gonna have Ashley leave her contact information if not. All right,
I see
cool.
there's one more
Oh, do
question,
you
but
got,
it was a direct message, so
oh, do you? Okay,
I'll
yeah, I
read
don't
it
have it.
and
Go
maybe
ahead.
respond offline. Let's see. In wholesale, there is some difference between use option contract or regular purchase contract and then assign. Yeah, I try not to touch option contracts because they're kind of like an agreement to agree in the future. So they can be a little slippery. So for wholesaling, I mean, the type of deals that I'm doing are more kind of structured and in the sense that they're more solid, where you have like regular purchase and sale with your seller, that's A to B, and then you have an assignment contract, B to C, and it's like clear and taken care of.
Perfect. Ashley, good evening. Missed your first couple minutes of the Zoom meeting. Did you share your area? So what is your, yeah, okay, what's your geographic coverage area?
Yeah, really good question. I think we dove right in
Yeah,
to
yeah.
substance. So New Jersey only. I don't handle work in any other states. I do have some referrals for states like Pennsylvania and New York. So those tend to be mirrored, investor states for people doing work here. So if you need a referral for those two states, I can provide, but I'm New Jersey only.
Awesome. And Ashley, what is your contact information? Anybody here that wants to reach out maybe for the beta test that you were talking about with contracts or just consult with you on any kind of real estate transaction? What would be the best way to contact you?
Yeah, email is best. So email is Ashley, ASHLEY and then my law firm's name, which is molsonlawfirm.com, and I will type it into the chat as before we end. I'm trying to go
Okay.
back to the whole meeting group. I'll type it in right now.
Okay, I think I have it in there too. Ashley at molsonlawfirm.com.
Yep.
Oh, you got it too. Okay, cool. Anybody that's in the chat, check that out. That's where you get a hold of Ashley. And thank you very much. It was great seeing you.
You too. Thank you. And thanks
All right.
everyone for joining.
All right, Ashley. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.